power. Can't tell you how thrilled I am by the word of the day, friends. And hopefully that's what everybody starts wrapping their mind around right now. Would love to hear your definition and what has changed possibly in your definition. And hopefully at the end, would love to hear what really has changed. With that said, I am so blessed and honored to have Kelly with us today, as well as Beverly. And everybody knows Kelly and Beverly, they're just fantastic. So there's no questioning. It's all about how do we get the best answers. And we're here for chat, for you to direct us, share where you want us to be, what you want us to talk about, because it challenges us to be in the moment. And it's a lot more fun that way too for everyone. So before the comments come in, I know there's always a lag, and then there's always a over lag when it's over. So we got to try and catch it in the middle. With that, Kelly, why don't you say hello and what's your initial thoughts on Friends?
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Friends, I mean, what a great word. And it is one of those words that, as you sort of alluded to on that intro, it does change over time, right? Of how we view that. And then I also thought it's also one of those things we're never taught about really how to make friends or those sorts of things as kids. You're thrown out on the playground and you kind of figure it out. But when we're younger, I feel like, or at least I wanted everyone to like me. Like that mattered, that everybody liked you. And as you got older and more mature, I shouldn't even say older because I think it happens earlier for some people than others. Um, we learn that friends aren't necessarily a lot of work, in the sense of there are those friendships that we've all had somewhere in our past where it's exhausting. Like that one friend that it's like, oh gosh, you kind of dread when you see the call coming in, which is so awful. But you know that it's like this isn't serving me well or adding value into my life, and it's actually doing a negative, and to move on from it and be okay with it. Because unlike when we're younger, we don't like it when people don't like us. Or I certainly didn't. I did not like if some like, why don't they like me? Like that was a thing for a cry session when you got home from school with with mom or dad. And I also think as we get older, or certainly for me, one of the things that's happened, and there's a saying somewhere that talks about we don't make friends, we recognize them. And I thought, God, that's so true. Because sometimes there's just people that you know and you connect with right away. And Beverly, I can say that's like what you and me, girlfriend. Like we
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
we
like,
were fast friends. Yes. And just because there's just that something there. And there's something so beautiful about a friendship, that it is a give and take, and you're supportive and you're there for one another in a non-judgmental safe space, much like a community. So those are my initial thoughts on it. So now I'm interested to know what your initial thoughts are, my friend Beverly.
oh, I'm going to bounce off yours because it's so true. When I met you, Kelly, before I even met you, just on the screen, I just said, that woman has something to say. And I think, oh, yeah, yes, yes. Okay. I think we all see that. We're attracted to what we're attracted to, and we don't know what it is. It could be what they're saying, or it could be the energy, or whatever it is. There is a something. It's kind of a hidden something.
Hmm.
And there are some people that have to have a lot of friends, or they call them
Yeah.
friends. And these are the extroverts out there. These are the ones that say, you're my friend, you're my friend, you're my fast friend. And, these for me are not true friends. But people, those people, the extroverts, need a quantity of them. They have to be busy with people. If they're not doing something with people, they're just not happy. I'm not one of those people. Okay. I like people, no question. I am not an introvert. Introverts are happy without people. As a matter of fact, people are pressure. And one
Mhm.
or two, maybe that's a something. And that's okay. Introversion, extroversion, whatever floats your boat, that's okay. For me, I'm an ambivert that I can go in and out of it.
Mhm.
So here, I love to have people, but then again, I need my energy back. It's like enough. And now we can have more. I cannot go out entertaining all the time. This is not for me, but I'd love to go and I love to entertain. So we have to understand our own personalities because what happens is there are people that can pressure us, like the extroverts, like you were saying, like, come here, come here. And it's sometimes yes. And I feel guilty if I don't go. And what kind of friend am I if I don't, etc. So we kind of have to, I think, know ourselves and know our boundaries and know what we need. And to your point, Kelly, some people you can only take for a short time. They do drain you. And if they are draining you and they're not giving back and they're not elevating you, but you do know them for a long, long time, you have to balance that. How much of a friend are they and what are they contributing to my life? And I know I'm pulling them up, but come on. So we have to, play with that word.
Mhm.
And not everybody that you've known for many, many years can be really one of the true people that you really bond with.
Mhm.
And sometimes you just meet somebody and it's like, wow, connection. And so there's something there happening. And, friendship is supportive. Friendship asks you for nothing. It's give and take, and you're there for people. And it's not about take and take. And
Mhm. Well,
Don, to your point.
that's sterling. What Kelly and Beverly have shared is experiential knowledge, not just
Yeah.
visionary knowledge, right? Where I project or anticipate. And everybody has their feelings of friendship. And
Mhm.
friendship changes over the years. Somebody you played baseball with when you were 10 may not have anything to do with what you're doing or who you are, but you bless them for being a friend at the time. I think where the big distinguishing factor is when you say best friend,
Mm.
and that separates everybody else. And right now, I can honestly say Beverly and Kelly are my best friends. And actually, everybody who is a regular here are my best friends. And the reason they are is because they're here and they're present here with me and in the moment, and we're all together at that time. And that's where friendship really distinguishes itself is, are they present? Which means, do I ever see them? Or when I see them, are they ever there with me? Right? Are they got their head somewhere else, or they're busy on? I mean, it's like we're seeing each other because we're just two ships that are going to say hello in the fog instead of just pass, And then who's relevant today? And looking back at my life, honestly, it might be hard to believe, but when I got home, I never remember having a friend coming over to the house all those years or even calling, and during work, I never had anything outside of work get into it. But I had plenty of friendships, plenty of associations, plenty of people. I was dealing with hundreds of people every day. And I could have chose anybody to say, hey, let's go out for a drink, or let's go out for lunch, or let's go out for this. And I just was better off with two main focuses: family at home, work at work, not try to mix the two up. And I think Beverly and Kelly make a great point. You need to set up your friendships based on who are your best friends. Because, if you have a conflict, you got to go to the best friend because that's what makes you a best friend, And even at work, I used to tell everybody, hey, we can all disagree on everything, but when we come to the action, everybody got to fall in 100%, right? So everybody's got something to say, but everybody's then got something to do based on what has been said. And I think that's the key is people need boundaries. They need definitions. Is we can be friends as long as, right? This is where it has to be respected, whatever it's time, place, situation, and it makes your life easier when you organize your friendships. And to Beverly and Kelly's point, your ability to reciprocate in the same or better value. You know, you don't want to be a user, a taker, you know, where, hey, I got these best friends, I can get whatever I want out of them. You know, well, that you're not talking about friendships at that point. You might be labeling it, but that's the distinction, I think, between honest conversation, sincere, heartfelt, and I think the common word was harmony. Some people you see, and in 2 minutes, you know, there's some connection there. There's some soulmate, you know, something beyond what you can figure. And other people, for whatever reason, boom, this is scary. You know, the person didn't even say a word. I can just feel energy. So before we go back to Kelly, let's recognize this lovely audience. Sheath, good day, esteemed friends, for sure. You know, and that's the thing is, you're present. You are what makes the moment, but makes the future moments through participating in these videos. You know, one benefit is knowing people forever will be able to see you in your best, most positive, friendly form. You know, and everybody on the screen who comments gets that exposure too. So it's now and wonderful to join. Same. You know, I talked to Renadeb. He's in India, and he always says, "I'll always start with two. One is wonderful to join the discussion, and the first one was good morning to all from my side." You know, I think that's so cool. And we got Kerry here, you know, with his jokes. Mints in the Harbor. How do you know the Mints in the Herb Garden are having fun? They went to amusement park. You know, you should write a book or do a video on this. Really, you got some talent, you know. And go ahead, Beverly.
Carrie, I don't know how he doesn't run out. He keeps on having a joke a day. I don't know where you get them, Carrie, but there is some talent here.
I agree, and I think you should take that and assume that to be valid. She said, "Friends are the siblings God never gave us." That's a wonderful, wonderful quote. You know, and it's just someone turning something a little around, showing you a facet that you wouldn't have seen, you know, or a perspective, and now all of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm going to incorporate that, right? And everybody took something off of the buffet table, right? It's like, hey, this is a Sheaf's great quote. Some are writing it down, some are talking about it in their head a couple times, maybe engrave it. Kelly, what do you think?
I mean, great start, and so many things, you know, resonated with me as you both were speaking. Um, Interesting because Beverly, as you said about being a ambivert, I'm like, I'm the same. When I tell people, if anyone who's familiar with Myers-Briggs, which I think most people are, I'm an INFJ, which most people are like, there's no way you're an introvert. And I'm like, I'm very centered on the spectrum, but I lean towards introvert because I need downtime. Like I need to rejuvenate. I need alone downtime. So I thought that was interesting. But Don, when you mentioning about friendship and work, you know, since it says LinkedIn and people have business relationships, that's a challenge too, I think, for a lot of managers when they're moving up. And I remember having this myself, is because, of course, more subordinate staff wants to be your friend. And it's, you have to keep a fine balance of who am I allowing to see? One, who do I really want to be friends with outside of work? And two, you have to be careful because there are those few people that do come into your life through work experience or work exchange that do become friends. But you've got to be careful internally of how you flaunt it or however you do, because that can create so many different problems in the sense of, and Lord knows I've seen this 1,000 times, where the rest of the team may feel like, oh, that's the favorite, you know, and then it creates all of that water cooler talk and gossip and, all kinds of just nastiness that occurs, which is it's fascinating to watch it from the outside, but you definitely don't want to be involved in it. So I do think that's a challenge, in the workplace, depending on what your position is, of course. But I think the higher up you are, on the ladder, if it were, the more careful you really need to be about that, and how you show that to the rest of the team. Um, and there was another thing that really stuck out, and I need to start doing like Harvey and write stuff down. But I always feel like if I start writing things down, I'm going to miss something. Because there was another good one. I did absolutely love the Ashif's little comment here too. And I don't know if you guys had this, and maybe this will be aging myself, but when we were kids, like one of the things that you had to show who your best friend was, is you had charms, and it was a little heart, and it said best friends, and each one of you wore a half. And like that was a thing when I was a kid. If you didn't have one, it was kind of like, oh, what's wrong with you? How come you don't have a best friend? um, and a best friend, and I maybe this goes into where I think there's sort of a layering of friends, because for me, as I've gotten older, my friendship circle, if you will, has gotten smaller. And I say that in the sense of when I've got something really going awry, or if I need to call someone at 3 a.m. For whatever reason, I have a handful of people, which I'm very blessed to have more than one that I can do that with. But beyond that, that we get into different layers of friendships, because there are some people that we don't necessarily go to for our deepest, darkest struggles. But if we have maybe one or two that we do that with, but then we go to those ones that I'll reach out for other things, and that I would love to, hang out with them. I love spending time with them, but it's just different. And I think that's okay too. And I think that happens more so too as we get older, because we're all about quality and not quantity, which then I guess leads into the whole part of the friendship from vanity matrix. A lot of people nowadays with social media, they think all of these people are their friends. And it's like, but are they really? They could be acquaintances, and they could be good connections, networking. But friends, I just have a hard time saying. I don't think anybody really has 15,000 friends. Like that just doesn't seem possible on any level, but that's just me. So I do think that social media kind of skews the whole meaning and dilutes it, I guess, of what a friend is. What do you think, Beverly?
Oh, I'd love to take on that. Okay. You said so much valuable information, Kelly. Yes, we have many different layers of friendships, and it comes in many different ways too. And I think it was Ashif that was talking about friends, and friends can be family that you choose. And
Yes.
that's, sounds like a cliche, but they can be closer to you than your own family members.
Hmm.
And if you have just a few, as you were saying, Kelly, you really, really are blessed, because it's not the quantity. And in the workplace, you do have to be cautious. Are they really your friends, or are they there because you are where you are? And will they be there when you're not where you are? And so it's often best to have them as friends when they have left, or you have left, or life has changed. But you have to set those boundaries for both of you, really, because they can be really hurt, and so can you. And also with social media, oh, wow. That's all I can say. Are these people friends? Okay. When we're watching people on a screen, much like LinkedIn Live, and even through a podcast, which my podcast right now is audio, you feel you know these people. And that is the thing too. And there are connections that we actually do make. And I'm thinking of this in my group. I have a group. There could have been 20,000 in there, but I screened. There's only over 5,000 plus. But I really screen, it's women over 50, it's women over 50 rock, and they have formed friendships. Have they really seen each other? I don't think so. Or maybe yes. But there was one person who was around from the very beginning, and I mentioned her name, Rosie Hendricks, and well, she's not there. Unfortunately, she did die. And this was part of this whole aspect of the group. This was a woman who was in California, and she was she worked in a restaurant. It was Brown's Bakery. If anybody is around there, people would come in just to talk to Rosie. She was an institution, and she was a friend of everyone. And she would send me Christmas cards. I'm here in Canada. She was down in California. She did things for others. She was such a true friend. And then she got sick. And what happened is, yes, she eventually died. Nobody, at least in my group, maybe she knew 2 or 3 people, but there was an outpouring online because she had touched so many people just by giving, just by smiling at people. Uber drivers that she took, into her network. And this is strictly, and in my case, it was only online, Kelly, which is so amazing to think. And there are people that may be listening right now, and we don't know them, we may never know them, but we do know them because they're here, to your point, Dawn. They're supporting us. They're talking, and this is what these live videos are so good, because we see each other, we can connect with each other, we can actually help each other, and so I think this friendship now, it's all expanding, it's become worldwide. It's absolutely awesome, and it's amazing when you just think about it. So
Yeah,
bless you, Rosie.
that's a wonderful story, Beverly, and it touches everybody's hearts, and everybody can look back and remember a Rosie of their own, right? Maybe it was the ice cream man, maybe it was the teacher, maybe it was just somebody that you were in awe of because they just had that ability to make everybody they touched a little bit better and a little bit better for themselves. And I think friendships to a larger extent have to be strategic, right? And strategic, not to be mechanical or not being as heartfelt. But I remember growing up, I said, what would it take for me to be their friend? Right? What do I have to do? No different on LinkedIn. Comment enough, promote enough, support enough. So you go over to somebody and say, I really like what you just did, right? I really like how you handle things. I'd love to be able to do something with you. I think
Exactly.
that's where you get strategic, and all of a sudden that whole law of the factor of the 5 people you're around most comes into play, because you never want to be the smartest person in a room, right? And you always want to be able to learn and grow. And it's like a square dance. Sometimes it's do-si-do and you got to change partners, right? And it's okay, because someone's not here now didn't mean their value or the benefit wasn't there then. But it's again strategic. When do I attach? When do I detach? I think in work and at home, the best thing one can do is do more communicating than people expect, which is not talking, but communicating. Nobody wants to be told. Nobody wants to be directed. But it's so much easier to say, I know you don't know me that well, but here's a few things I'd like you to learn or know about me. And in turn, I'd love to know sensitivities or issues that I don't have to overstep, right? And that's where most of the job interview was. I didn't care about the skill set. In most cases, if they knew nothing, I was better off than having them unlearn things and unlearn cultures and environments, right? It's like, hey, we're going to be working together a long time. I want to get to know who you are, and I think you should know who I am up front, because it gets too messy to take a job and a week later not have it, to give somebody a job and a week later take it away. So why not get to the front early And I think people appreciate that. You know, even at home, I always had a beeper, and people had my number, but I knew if I got a call, it was something important. Because I think, to Kelly's point, you need to have time for it, them, but more importantly, you. And you should come first, because you need to get ready. You need to be prepared. You don't want to just fly into something. And, you know, friends respect friends who are respectful, right? How many people just show up at your door, and how do you feel? Unless it's a person who came from far away and they flew in and it was a surprise, it's almost like, hey, why didn't you call? Well, why didn't you?
Don't you dare.
Or they go into your refrigerator without asking, and it's like, anyways, we could talk about what makes for good friends and maybe makes for challenging friends, but you're at least half of the equation. You choose who, when, and how. And, you know, I haven't been shy with saying, hey, you just can't do that. We're not going to be able to meet today, right? You didn't have an appointment. You just showed up, or you showed up this way. And people respect that, in a sense, is because it teaches them,
Mhm.
you know, and you
Mhm.
have, you know, I always tell somebody, if someone hurts you and is awful to you, don't point it out to them, because all you're doing is helping them. Right? They don't deserve that. They've already done something. Get them out. Get them on. You know what I mean? And you don't have an honorable relationship anymore. So reciprocal goes out the window. You know, and when people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, they do something. So Dave is here. Dave had a wonderful time with me and Kelly. Hope to have him back. Sometimes we have friends who are closer to us than blood relatives. We
Yeah.
won't share with family some things our friends know about, because, you know, you didn't get a chance to pick your family.
Mhm.
And there's family that, no matter how close it is, they're still who they are, right? And if they're a jerk or an idiot, why would you? Because now I'm related to you. You know, that's even making you wonder about yourself. So yeah, such a good point. We've got a new name here I haven't seen, but very welcome. Glad you're here. Very great. That's a wonderful thing. Ashi, friendships, the wine of life, Edward Young.
I
Yeah,
almost
you
used
know,
that quote this
I,
morning.
I love that, dialoguing it out, talking it out. You know, the thing is when you do have a friendship, go for the gold. You know, get as much for them as much for you. It's like supermarket sweep with no time limit. You know, and I love friends, and I couldn't have been who I am without friends. Certain friends, some friends were short term friends. You know, some were long term, but I blessed them all for coming into my life. And, you know, you can't take credit for yourself unless you give credit for the people who gave you your ideas, your thoughts, you know, your best practices. And I think that lends itself to gratitude for friendship. So when you find somebody, you know they're special. You know they may not be here forever, right? Especially as you get older. And the friends you make in the future that you're supporting right now, I think is so important. Maria's here. Maria's great. What's the word? Well, it's friendship, Maria. Glad to have you. Back to Kelly. You know, this is such a wonderful topic, because I guess we are and have been really good friends with a lot of good friends.
Yes, and the whole point about friends are your chosen family, I love that for so many reasons. And if that doesn't make most feel nostalgic right away, I don't know what does. And it's so true though. My dad is an example. His best friend, I always called him Uncle Don my whole life, and his wife was Aunt Dorothy. Um, and that's just how it was. And they all referred to us as their nieces and nephews, and we referred to their kids as our cousins. Um, and when my dad passed, he was someone that stepped up. I mean, he flew to Arizona to get me registered for college, and was always there for me. And we always knew that. And there's some so comfort about that. And and it was closer than blood, because my dad did have a brother, but they were not close at all. And the friendship between the two of them, I will say as a kid, it was a good thing to see how friends truly act towards one another. Because as men, and this is even, going at a different level, they showed their love for one another. Like they said, I love you to each other. They hugged. I mean, they wrote each other letters all the time. Um, which I have some of those that I got like, I don't know, 5 years ago from one of my uncle's daughters after he passed. And it was awesome to see these letters that my dad had written to him. He saved them. And I just thought, God, that's so special. But even reading it, you could feel the connection and the love between the two. And there's just something that's so special about that kind of a connection and the chosen family. Um, I consider my close knit friends, they are family. I mean, if ever they're here and they're not going anywhere for the holidays, they're always invited to my mom and stepdad's house and have come many a time. And the same, goes the other direction. Um, so I think that's super cool. So now I'm feeling super nostalgic thinking about all those things and getting able to see what a true friendship looks like and really counting on one another and being there for each other during the toughest times in life and through the biggest victories in life. Um, because it's not all roses. I mean, with a friendship, and you've got to have those people that understand, hey, I'm down, I'm in the dumps, I'm going through some stuff. But they're still there to help pull you through. Hey, I'm right here with you. I got you. Um, and knowing that's a rarity. And I think, to go back to one of your points, Beverly, about social media and friends, I mean, you can create friendships, certainly deep, good friendships through social media. And Christy and I are a perfect example. We've only been in person with each other 6 times over a 15-year period. And it had always been really communicating through some type of platform or, and when she would come visit, I would go, the group of girlfriends that would go out to lunch. So you can create deep friendships through, but I also think it's a great example of, even though we're friends and how our lives move, it's really been in the past year that Christy and I have become very good friends. And I think it's because we're in the same season of life in the sense of everything lines up of what we were looking, and not that they didn't line up before. It's just that sometimes it takes time to go and life is silly that way, right? I mean, because if you ever notice, the right people are always delivered in your life when you need them the most, and you didn't ever expect it. So yeah, so there, I just went down a nostalgia path, and now I'm going to toss it back over to you, Beverly.
Just went down your path too. So now I have nothing to say. But yes, I always have something to say.
Yes.
So I'll pick it up. But that was a beautiful story. And when I was thinking also how special that friendship was with your dad and your uncle, because so frequently men's friendships are different than women's.
Yes.
Women share an emotional connection, and we share our stories and we go through our lives together, and you can go through divorces and you can go through all kinds of problems together. And then it's harder. And, you'll speak on that for sure, Dawn, but it's usually I go out with the boys and I play golf and I do this and I do that. And I was a guest on a podcast just recently, and it was for men to be able to speak to their wives. And I thought that that was really interesting, because you would think that men and women can speak to each other, particularly if you're married, but it's the friendship that as you go through in later years, that can be a loss, because he's doing his thing, she's doing her thing, she's taking care of the kids, he comes to events, or maybe he's a good dad. And then what happens is, where are you You know, where is the friendship between the two of you? She's got her girlfriends, he's got his guy friends, and then what do we talk about? Well, we better go out and go with other friends, or we have nothing to talk about. And so that's often what happens in a relationship too.
Yeah.
The friendship that started in the beginning just kind of dissipates over the years. So it's not only about being married to somebody, it's about maintaining or keeping or even developing a friendship. And that's what I think is extremely important, particularly as we go along the road with our partners. What do you think about that, Dawn? And I know you're friends with your wife, so that's
Yeah.
good.
I think that you're absolutely right, but I think it's not as much based on gender as is on consciousness, right? And more people who are more elevated in their thinking understand they need to give to get, they need to share, they need to respect. And below that, it becomes more of a competition versus a cooperation or a collaboration. So men or women, and there's women who have lower levels of consciousness too, who are competitive and majoring in the minors. So it's really now about also blending. One thing that may make more people raise their consciousness is not only is it the best way to act by sharing, supporting, promoting each other, getting the one who gives more if necessary for a while to keep it going. But it's also knowing it works better. It cracks the nut faster and easier, right? Two people separated by strength versus joined by collaboration or cooperation or love are really going to be at a disadvantage. And that's where shows that base themselves on thought and knowledge share, forgetting about where it came from, because all it matters is the result of where it came from. We'll get people to duplicate that, and that's where social media could come in. I agree, they can call connections, followers, friends. They're just acquaintances. There's just people, maybe you shook their hand, didn't even look at their face, and don't know what happened, right? That's how fast that connection took place. In, out, you're a number, and that's great. But it takes people to say, not only how do I make people feel better, but how do I make people feel better that makes me feel better?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because then you're not at a loss, or hey, I'll lend you this and you'll pay me back one day. It's like, hey, I feel so much better for being part of. I'll give you an example. Anne has been teaching yoga for like 30 years, and over time she has different groups, and they're primarily almost all women, right? And some are in different levels of situation. Some can only do chair yoga because that's all they can move. Others can do a little bit more advanced. Happens to be a lady who's in her young 40s who came down with a couple kids, came down with this terrible illness.
Mm.
And she's not going to do well. And so all of the people in the group decided every day one would make a dish and take it over for lunch and sit with her for 3-4 hours, right? Help out with the kids, whatever. And that's where friendship, like Beverly says, with that lady who, where did this come from? I got the worst of situations, but I got the best of friends to help me with them.
Yes.
Right? And someone to talk to, somebody to listen with. And I think people who want to continue to build stronger friendships need to get stronger themselves, need to learn more, to share more, understand more. And I think the other thing about any relationships that last, you've got to stay with somebody in something. Right? So you got to, if someone says we're going to play bridge and you hate bridge, it's like, okay, let's do it. Right? Because it's something we can do together, and maybe I'll learn to like it, or maybe you'll learn to dislike it and we'll like something else. So it's almost like, hey, you can't separate two people when they're driving in a car, right? No one's going to jump out the door. but everybody's going to go in wherever the car's taking them. And I think relationships are, if you're not sure, give more. That's my opinion, right?
Yes,
Like
sir.
Jim Rohn once said, and he had somebody gave him great service on something, and for the whole time it was happening, he was actually getting a shoe shine. He kept saying $1 tip, $2 tip, $1 tip, $2 tip, and he ended up giving the guy $1. And he said all day that $1 haunted him. That took so much of his time and his energy. He said, every time I ever get a thought, do I give a bigger tip or less? I'm giving bigger, right? So I never have to think. So with that said, let me just cover some more comments. As Chief said, understand and understood friendship. Maria says, random asks why the hat, Kelly. Don't know. I think it's a beautiful hat.
Yeah, me too. Love it.
The hat.
I love hats. You can always tell I'm always.
John's the hat guy, so it's just
I'm
the
always,
compliment.
I'm always going to weigh in on the side of a hat.
Yeah.
I'm definitely always going to weigh on the side of a best friend. Every individual requires friends to experience life in a new way. Some of the friends are good company. Some of them are bad company. Everyone cannot be a friend to all. You know, I always believe that if they were a stranger when you met them, they could still be a stranger when they left you.
I like that one.
Right? You don't have to think what happened. It was like, I didn't even know this
They
person.
came in.
What happened to the cloud that was here 2 minutes ago?
A good one, Don.
Kelly, how many folks did you connect with you invited for connection for this show? That's an interesting question. The best mirror is an old friend, a couple of wise guys. A Chief, that makes so much sense because only a best friend can tell you what nobody else will tell you.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'll try to do it with kid gloves. I don't want to. I would never bring this up if it wasn't so important for you. You know, but whatever you're doing here is. Let me take a moment and share. So, Kelly, what's your thoughts?
Well, for whatever reason, just right when you said that, I was thinking about, or what sparked was a best friend is the one who tells you about a truly like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And you go, that is crazy. Like, that's a crazy idea. So when do we go? When do we start it? And my best friend, we've been best friends for, gosh, over 20 years or ish. We're children when we're together. I mean, 100%. I mean, and it's fantastic. But we've also been through a lot of life together and have been through the ups and downs. And it's interesting because there was something when you said, Beverly, about men and women having different friendships, because absolutely they do. I have had, and I will say there's women being emotional and being up on emotional things, or more so on their connection. I've never liked the women that are like, how come I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks? And like, you have to go through that whole drag of like, and it's like, oh my gosh, seriously, is this what we're going to worry about right now? But my dearest friends who have been in my life for a very long time, and I'm like, even my childhood friend that I could call her right now and it would be like no time had passed. We've never had one foul word with each other, no argument, no anything. And I don't have a clue. I'm just like, man, I've been blessed. I mean, I've been in fights with friends who probably aren't my friends anymore. But it's interesting because I think those relationships go back to what both of you had made points on. Those friendships, you're communicating, like you know what's going on with one another, and it's your safe space. And the other thing that came to mind about the men and women having different friendships, one of the things I could not understand is when I got divorced, and as most of you know, I was in a domestic violence related relationship, which I did do Beverly's podcast recently, so you can catch that on my page. Is people stayed friends with him even after they knew what he had done. And it wasn't women. Women were all like, "Oh gosh, no way, kick him to the curb." But men, and I'm like, "How can they still hang out with him? Like, how could they still golf with him?" And I remember it bothered me because I thought, "Well, I can't be friends with them," because of course I couldn't be around anyone that was associated to my ex for so many reasons. Um, and I remember it being explained to my stepdad said, "Well, that's not how men operate. They're just doing a golf game. They're not paying attention to they don't care about that emotional stuff that's going on. They're on the golf course, they're having a good time, and then they go home. They don't carry it the same way as women." Because if I would have had a girlfriend who blatantly cheated on her husband, I would have had a hard time being friends with that person because that speaks volumes of your character. And if you're doing that to the most intimate relationship in your life, I don't know that I want you being involved in my life, because I don't think I can trust you. But it is completely different on how we view things. Because women, I think, and Beverly, this will be a really good one for you. Women will cut it off and have no problem, and men just kind of, and not all. And I'm please don't send any hate. I'm not putting everybody in one bucket, but generally speaking, just don't feel the same way about it. What do you think?
That's true. That's true. Women give with their hearts,
Yeah.
and they speak with their hearts, and that's why I think the friendship is an emotional connection. And I also believe, to your point, when you say, if somebody calls me, Kelly, and says, "How come I haven't heard from you?" They cannot be my friend.
No.
Okay. Because I cannot have them in my mind where I have to call them weekly because I have too much on my plate. And they have to understand that to be my friend.
Yeah.
Your friend has to understand you as much as you understand them.
Mhm.
And if it's too heavy, for me, that's not a friendship. My friends, I don't have to see them for months, or even I'm thinking I see somebody maybe once a year. But when they come in, it's like just yesterday I was talking to them. It's that emotional bond, that support. And you can go back years, and we have years and years and years, and it doesn't matter. They've followed you through your life experiences. They know you, they get you, you get them. And it doesn't matter if somebody's going to call, if they need help, you'll be there. And you're not expecting them to be there for you, but as I talk, of course they will be, because that's just the way it is. Whereas what you were saying, Kelly, when you were told, "Well, that's Nen, he's playing golf." Yeah, it's a good game. Or, "Why am I missing this game?" He's a great golfer, great competition. So is that a friend? Yes, it's a friend for them. Would that be a friend for me? No, I would definitely discriminate. And that's, I think we all have to see, what is a friendship for us? Is it about quantity? Is it about quality? Is it about emotion? What is that? For me, it's that emotional connection. I can know many, many people, but do I have that emotional connection with them? No. But for some, you can get that connection in a heartbeat, and you say, "Wow, yeah, that's somebody I want to continue to connect with." And I think that that's amazing. That's the energy that we all give out, and we all have that. We just have to know in our gut, yes, that's somebody, and reach out, like Rosie in the bakery. Who knows who she could have connected with? Lots and lots and lots. So we just have to be nice to people. We just have to be out there, and you never know who you connect with. It's just be there. Look at all these people, Dawn, just here. They're here. You're connecting with them.
Yeah, and
And
I'll interrupt before we toss to you, Dawn, because I
go
don't want to
ahead.
lose this thought. I think a community can be your friend, right? Rosie's
Yeah.
the perfect example, and here's the perfect example. If anyone, needed help with something, there would be quite a few people that would respond or like to Rosie, what can we do to help?
Yes.
So I just think that's a great another little transition to say a friend can be your community.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this is a treasure chest of valuable insights. And I think, coming at it from a learning mind, an objective mind, the key benefit that programs like this can offer is awareness. As more men know, hey, that's how women think, or this is what would make a difference. A lot of it is ignorance. A lot of it is things that were taught that should have never been taught by people who should never have been teachers, but that's not everybody's choice
Exactly.
who they come into their family with or their world with, school with, or whatever. But I also know that communicating is the key,
Mhm.
right? And sharing everybody's viewpoint with respect and appreciation, where someone doesn't have to claw their way up to get a stage and then have to get minimized. You know, it should be where everybody meets as an equal. And why wouldn't you want to know? I mean, I think the key in anything is qualifying, right? What qualifies for a friend? What qualifies for a best friend? You know, Jim Rohn had a definition of a best friend. And he said a best friend is someone if you got illegally arrested in a foreign country,
Uh-huh.
how long would they be there to get you out? And what would they do to get you out? And it would be forever for as much as they could. Right? And how many of your friends, if you called them up from some place they never even heard of and said, I've been taken advantage of and I need you, would get on a plane or send somebody and take care of you? And I think a best friend is an advocate when you can't be your own advocate. And too many people worry about their financial security. Your true security is your network of best friends, because if you don't have the money, and again, if it's justified, if it's necessary, they'll figure a way out with you. If not with the direct benefit, at least the company, the advice, you're not here alone. We're going to investigate this. I know somebody that knows somebody, and together we're going to make it happen. And I think at that point, you can lean back when you need to because you're overwhelmed. You're in situations you've never been in. You admit I can't handle it, right? It's too much. And I think that's where people stretch themselves too far because I'm afraid that what they're going to think of me. I'm afraid they're going to reject me. And in turn, you just time out and fall out because of not pushing that fire alarm and seeing who will come to the table, because that's important to find out who aren't your best friends. Because I know in business situations, I couldn't believe when I was at the bottom that I never thought I'd be at. How many people decided they're not even returning calls?
Mhm.
You know, how did this happen? This person was like here all the time, happy go lucky, and now things turn. And then on the other side, I had people show up. I'll give credit to this one gentleman. His name was Paul Wellborn, and he owned 3 million square feet of warehousing space in Denver. And he was fabulously wealthy, and he was my landlord. And I remember every so often he was an older gentleman. He was like 40 years older than me. And it was scary because he would always drive and he never look at his mirror. But anyways, the point is we got to know each other, kind of different generations, but we'd have lunch. And anyways, when I got into hard times, he said, you're a good guy, you know? And he says, I'm going to help you. And he says, the warehouse you're in, I'm going to charge you $500 a month. And don't pay me even the $500 if you need it. And there are other people like that. And it's like, wow. And what it says is all that goodwill, all that respect, going to lunch with people, admiring people, made a difference that you never knew. And these were the people who came to rescue you while you were telling everybody else who you thought would rescue you. They saw it and did it on their own. So that's another reason. Beverly, we're coming up on top of an hour. I'll finish off with some comments. I mean, this has been
Oh,
so great because I think we're all really good friends and enjoy that. Distance is an illusion, as Chief says.
Mm.
Anyone can be touched. So true. Natalie always has wonderful comments. I've been quiet but listening intently. I was recently hurt deeply by people I thought were friends, and I thought our meeting calls were safe place. It turned out to be a learning experience, and I've yet to be too trusting. And I think do more with less people. Don't try to do less with more people. It doesn't go deep enough or rich enough. And I think those are qualifiers. How rich, how deep can we be? Right? Because sometimes your best friends are your best people.
Mhm.
And some people do things for you occasionally. You don't even know who they are, right? There's someone who will greet you or say something, you don't even know their name. And it's like, they made me feel better just now than anybody in my life will today. And I think that's a distinction between, well, they were physical, right? There's something to that. And if you can't get physical, get virtual together versus being distant apart. One last thing I'd like to say about friendship, if I ever can say a last thing about anything. I've had some friendships that were 40 years, 35 years, people I offer that were guardians of my kids if anything would happen. I chose them over family because I know how irresponsible most of my family was. And I wasn't going to do them or my kids a favor. And it ended badly. It's always ends on betrayal when things are that long. But you know what I said to myself with every friendship? Don't take the last incident or the last year. There are 40 years, fun, wonderful experiences, and why throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Accept all the good, all the value. And everybody, for whatever reason, put you in your position today because of them, right? And it might have been a hard detour. It might have been hitting a wall at 60 miles an hour, but you survived. And that gives you more than people who have just had an easy, fluffy, everything is comfortable. But you know what? They never get hungry.
Mhm.
They never get aggressive. They never get impatient, right? They're used to waiting and things happening versus people say, I'm tired of waiting. It ain't ever going to happen. And I don't want to wait for it to happen. So with that, Beverly, great conversation today. Can't say enough about it.
Well, we have a wonderful topic, which is friendship, which can keep on going and going and going.
Right.
But when I'm thinking of, I was thinking this morning of friendship, and the song, Thank You for Being a Friend, kept on going around in my head. And then I said, oh, wow, that is so true. And then I connected with, I don't know if you saw on CNN, Jimmy Buffett died lately. And it was Chris Christopherson who's on CNN. And they were talking about Jimmy Buffett and what it meant to him because he couldn't go to the funeral. And so he just was talking about Margaritaville and how much he's helped him and all that stuff. And they shared a lot of bonds. And they were really hard, strong livers in the music band, et cetera, et cetera. And you really felt it in his voice. And then after, it was Anderson Cooper who said, what if you went to the funeral? What would you say to Jimmy on the last day? And he just said, I'm here, bro. And I think that says it all.
Mhm.
Thank you for being a friend. That's kind of it.
Perfect ending. We're great.
Thank
Kelly?
you.
Well, gosh, I can't top that. That was beautiful. I mean, that gave me chills, and it's so true because that is what the best friends are the ones that are just they're there. And I love that so much. So I want to end on that note, and then just with my usual, please go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
Well,
Love
that's terrific.
Love
I want to also share Kelly's awesome journey with Christy on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and I know Beverly has a podcast. And
Yes.
If you loved what you heard, there's opportunities to hear more and to become better friends with each other. We didn't know each other months ago,
No.
and it took whatever situations or whatever it is to bring us together, but we also worked and continue to work at these friendships. You know, friendships are always under construction. You know, they're always something you got to work at, work for, to get benefit, to give and to get. And I think, you know, if everybody looks at themselves and doesn't ask themselves, what do I need or want, but what have I done to deserve what I want? Right? And be the factor that makes it easier and better, and keep your door open. You know, another thing is when people show up, set a table, you know, offer some refreshment, offer some grace and comfort, because I think that's the best environments for friends. So what I would say, this is a wonderful opportunity, because friendship can be everything, or it could be everything that you don't want. So choose better, be better, and share with others. And that's hopefully what we're doing, is duplicating this, rippling this, and all of a sudden see people getting better friends and happier, more successful lives. So with that, come back if you can in 23 hours. I'll tell you exactly who we are once Dr. Marilyn Scott, Dr. Joanne is going to be here tomorrow. Leslie's here on Saturday. And then Sunday, we've got Sarah. Monday is Gretchen. Tuesday, Beverly's back on Tuesday. And we got a new gentleman, Matthew Rolnick, coming on Wednesday. A lot of new people. So excited. I can't tell you how invigorating this conversation is. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk hopefully another day. Take care.